it's just everything happened at once.
Yeah.
Today.
Exactly. That about sums it up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, one of those days.
yeah. But we're here. We're all good.
We are here.
And we have P. Stemish and Christoph. Everyone, hello. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Bad Panda Bear. Awesome. So if this is your first time here, this is our Star Trek Sunday brunch. This is where Samantha and myself discuss Star Trek episodes. Samantha is going through the Star Trek series for the first time. We just finished TNG a couple weeks ago, and we are in our second week now of discussing DS9. So, Deep Space Nine.
Yay!
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 But yeah, it's been really fun. So this week we're going to be talking about the episodes Q-less, Dax, The Passenger, Move Along Home, The Nagus, and Vortex, which I now realize I put in my tweet, The Vortex. So, shame.
For shame. Shame.
For shame. Yep. Hey, Andy. Hey, Adam. All right. So now we're kind of in the swing of Deep Space Nine. So we had our exciting welcome to the Deep Space Nine universe, and now it's like, oh yeah, this is a first season of Star Trek.
Yes, there were some clunkers in this series, that's for sure.
Yeah, as I was kind of putting our summaries together, I was like, oh, they, most of them are like, this is rated one of the lowest by the, this ranking of DS9 episodes. And yeah, exactly. So I love it. Good times. But I will say, we started off with a pretty good one with Q-less. So, yeah, let's just jump right in.
Yes, so we saw Q again.
Yes.
He couldn't stay away for long.
Of course not. Yeah, these are our, I think Q-less was like our last transitional, you're not watching TNG anymore, welcome to Deep Space Nine episode.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, we saw Vash, who was Picard's girlfriend before, and then Q showed up, and they've basically been touring around the Gamma Quadrant together and come back with a mysterious alien crystal that they're going to sell in an auction on Deep Space Nine. And
right, exactly. Obligatory Q appearance, the first one. Yeah, so it took me a second to remember who Vash was, because I was literally going through all of Picard's dalliances. I was like, which one is she? And then I quickly remembered she was the archaeologist person, who is morally ambiguous and ethically ambiguous, and I don't know if I like her very much, to be honest.
That's fair. That's fair.
She may be one of those characters in the fandom that has a love-hate, you either love her or hate her kind of thing. Seems like she might be one of those. I'm more on the side.
Valid.
But it was fun to watch her with Quark, actually, because Quark he always sees an opportunity, and he's like, I know people who will want to buy this,
right?
To auction it off. And then I forget does the crystal do something to the people on the ship, or is it
no?
Okay.
Yeah, they are. Let me find. I gotta look up the details with.
I watched this last Sunday, so
yeah, no worries.
We just a little bit rusty.
Rolled right into it. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I think. Well, Bahana mentioned Q doesn't have much chemistry with Cisco. We'll get into Q and Cisco as well, but Andy mentioned amoral is a good description, and I do think in the spectrum between Picard and Quark, she's more on the Quark side of the house for sure.
Which is actually why their interactions were really fun in this episode, just because they kind of speak the same language, and they know when they're speaking they're speaking things, and then there's all this other stuff going on underneath what they're saying. Yeah. It's they both understand that language exactly, and that was fun.
Right. Yeah, that was really good. And the quick thing about the crystal, so essentially what's going on is they brought this crystal aboard, and then they're starting to, the station is starting to be affected by this gravimetric field. and
Right.
they realize that the crystal is actually the source of that, and so they beam it into space, and then it transforms into an alien and goes through the wormhole, as things are wont to do.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was right there. So it's affecting stuff around the ship a little bit. Yeah. And the Q reveal was actually really fun when he's the ensign in the little the thing, and he turns around and I was like, it's Q.
Q. And I love too that was it O'Brien who's like, hey now, hold up, you gotta go back through your training. You've been trained on Qs, because that's him. And that was really good.
That was good. Really fun. And yeah, I don't know. He's so manipulative, though. This was on the same par as holy hell. Yeah, this was on the same par as the creepy girl Q episode. I thought, with the one that we talked a lot about.
We talked a lot about that.
But
I revealed way too much about myself in that discussion.
Yes, we learned some things.
We learned things.
What did we learn today, children? But this was like, he was obviously less, I feel less, like, it was like less sexual magnetism in here, but it was the same manipulation aspect with Bosch.
Which I think was interesting, because when we had that discussion about that other Q episode, I fell into the rabbit hole and kind of revealing the fact that my preferred, like, when we talk about romance shipping things, I'm very much like mentor-mentee type thing, which is why the Doctor is like so my jam from Doctor Who. And that was the vibe we were getting from that, when he was trying to like get this new recruit, like, she's a young Q and come with me and you'll see the world type thing. And then this was like that, but in reality, that was the fanfiction side. This was like, okay, now you went off and adventured with Q and now you can't get out. And,
right, exactly. Because he's like, if you leave me, you're going to, that spider bite that you had way back when is going to come back, and you're going to turn old and all this stuff, like true manipulation stuff that was a little off. A little.
Disturbing. But I think but it was good. It's still a good episode, and I did like it. And as few people were bringing up the relationship with Q and Cisco, and they the boxing, like, Cisco just hits Q, just slugs him. And of course P. Stevish did the great quote, "Picard wouldn't hit me. I'm not Picard."
I thought that was great, I have to say. I mean, Cisco is still on the fence a little bit for me. I'm looking forward to getting to know him a little bit more as the series goes on. But I thought it was great that he hit Q. I was like, finally, Q deserves to be hit right in the kisser. Like, but it was a fun moment. Because Q clearly has a man crush on Picard, so it's like, Picard wouldn't hit me. Yeah.
It's like, not everyone finds you charming, Q. Like, not everyone just tolerates you. Because I think, be interesting, I might look this up, but I don't know what order it was in that we have this DS9 Q appearance, and then Q came in Voyager. So this may have been Q's first... Well, actually, no, this is the first season. So, of course, this is before Voyager. So this is the first non-Picard Q interaction that we have, and it's very much like, his relationship with Picard is very different.
Very, yeah. And funny, well, just small tangent, I'm doing my own Voyager rewatch right now, and I literally just saw the first Q episode for Voyager, and it's that weird guy, like, it's a not Q, and I was like,
oh yeah,
I was like, wait, is he? I know we saw the regular Q here, and then he comes in later, and anyway,
that's awesome.
Like, oh, there's Q again.
That's really funny. Yeah, I love it. That's amazing. It's interesting to see their dynamic, and I think there's some back and forth here about the relation, like, people's opinion of Cisco. I think for me, I struggled with him a little bit at the beginning because I feel like the dialogue and the acting was like, it just kind of was taking a while to settle in and for Avery Brooks to find that character. So I get that. But at the same time, watching it now after knowing Sisko, it still is like, I don't feel like I'm watching a totally different character like I do a little bit more with Bashir. Like when I'm watching these early Bashir episodes, I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's not my Bashir.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily feel that as much with Sisko. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Sisko, but it's still finding his feet and stuff.
I think it's a dialogue thing and his interpretation of the dialogue for sure. Like the acting is a little bit rocky in some of it, just because I think he's trying to figure out how, like you just said, how he's really going to be this character through that dialogue that he's given. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to getting to know him more.
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of people too, there seems to be some discussion as well about like maybe it's our own personal opinions of Picard that shaped our opinion of Sisko, that you know, if we were kind of like, you know, Picard is the end all be all space captain, Sisko is not, and in comparison to that, and the fact that he openly dislikes Picard, and so that causes some consternation, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Cool. I gotta say, I'm on Sisko's side with the disliking of Picard.
Yeah,
he's got good reason, and you know, I think Picard has his issues too. For me.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. Okay, any last thoughts on this episode?
No.
Think we're good? Okay.
We're good.
So the next episode is Dax. Now, last week, there was a little bit of confusion about because this was your first interaction to Dax, and like who Jadzia is versus Curzon, and what the Trill symbionts actually are, and all of that. So
this did not clear it up.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it did a little bit, and I could tell it was supposed to help somewhat, but it was really hard to follow who was who, what was what, who was who when what was what. Like, I'm still not quite understanding who is talking. Like, it's like 75% it's Dax talking and 25% it's Jadzia talking.
Yeah.
And when Dax is talking, is he sometimes talking as Curzon?
Yeah, Curzon.
Curzon, Dax. So I was just like, I was all kinds of confused throughout this episode.
Yeah. No. Okay. So there was a couple. First of all, Mutant Bob, hi. I mean, you saw me on Extra Credits, and I was geeking out about Star Trek, and then you tuned into our Star Trek weekend thing, and some people are commenting that the audio is a little bit low, so I'm gonna turn it up, but I don't want to blast anyone's eardrums. So
is it yours or mine?
I think I'll put both of ours up, and then we should be okay. But let us know if it's too loud. So okay, thank you for the heads up, because it's like whatever I send out into the universe. So anyway, so yeah, so you're still confused.
That's the summary of this episode.
Gotcha. Yeah, fair enough. Mutant, that's awesome. I like when people are crafting while we're chatting. So yeah, the premise of this episode, in addition to trying to introduce a little bit more about the Trill stuff, is the fact that like these guys show up and essentially arrest Jadzia on behalf of like Dax, that Curzon Dax committed a murder of this guy's father.
Right.
And then as they go into it, we find out that Curzon and the mother were having an affair, and that he couldn't have killed him because he was sleeping with the mom. Drama.
And so, but was her son his son then?
No. I think that it was still his dad. It's just that he revered his dad in the same way their whole culture did, but at least I didn't get that impression that he was like the love child. I don't think he was. I think it was just the fact that his dad wasn't as perfect as he was making him out to be, and so that he had flaws. that resulted in him with his rebellion and all. To be honest, like the whole what actually happened thing is a little bit fuzzy for me, but just a quick fling. And so with talking about the symbiont, essentially what it is, Dax is the name of the symbiont. And then, like, when a host takes over a Trill symbiont, what happens is that they take on those memories. They take on the past, the whole life that has been lived, and then they inject their own. So they're still, like, each Dax symbiont is unique as they go through their lifetime. They each get a little bit of the past. They each get the past, but then they're adding their own on top of that. So Jadzia is not Curzon Dax.
Right.
And it's more that the symbiont, the Dax, is carrying all of these memories and these relationships and this whole past with them to this new host. So, it's less so like they're now a puppet thing, which I think is what some of the confusion was. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of that started to become, at least the nuance of it started to become a little bit clearer during the trial with Cisco and the other guys' lines of questioning and how she's answering. I mean, it's very interesting. It was just I got a little bit lost in who was talking and what the actual result. I mean, the result was that she's proven innocent,
right?
Because she wasn't the one responsible.
And she had all the memories as well, and she was able. And then Fiona Flanagan, whom we love, she also testified. She was like, "Yeah, Curzon was in my bed when he was killed." So
right,
and so then Jadzia is like, "Yeah, I remember that," and so
both of them were innocent, basically. In the ultimate result. But yeah, and the fact that Cisco was proving that Jadzia had this whole life before Dax, and so she was a completely different person when this was happening, when the murder was taking place and all of that. So I mean, it was there was a lot packed into this episode about the Trill being. It was hard to follow, but...
And I think that makes sense, because I think then that you're right, because the argument with Cisco, what Cisco was making, does muddle the whole thing, where he's like, not only are we just trying to prove the innocence of Curzon, but also Jadzia shouldn't be punished for Curzon's crimes,
right?
Because even though she has all of those memories, Jadzia was an independent person, like when this event was happening, because Curzon was still Curzon Dax. She was just Jadzia, not Jadzia Dax. So I can see how that would very much muddle all of that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, and it's not a terrible way to introduce the Trill culture. I think it's just a little bit confusing.
Yeah. Sorry. I did like at the end when what's her name was the wife. They had a little moment, and she got told her to live, just and don't live your life, and don't be bogged down by Curzon. But what was interesting is in these next couple episodes, Cisco starts to refer to her more and more as old man.
Yeah.
And they kind of, I don't know how she feels about that, but it seems like they reached some kind of weird understanding of that's who he knew, and he calls her that, and she doesn't seem to mind.
No.
So that's kind of a reconciliation on that side too.
And I think, I'm just inserting my own opinion on that, but I think that some of that might be from the fact that, like, she does have all of Curzon's memories, and Curzon was, really close friends with Cisco. Jadzia didn't know Cisco. She only knows Cisco through Curzon. So the fact that she's like, oh, I can actually preserve this friendship is really, sweet.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to have that. And, I think And people seem to agree in the chat too that, you know, it seems to be kind of a unique thing to them. But you'll see in future sort of Trill episodes where that there are rules with more romantic relationships that, you know, and it becomes a really interesting dynamic. And I think we're starting to touch on that a little bit here about, you know, identity and the ability for people to understand that you have new identities. And so it's really good. But yeah, this one's okay. And yeah, I'm glad Peace Demish agrees with me. Fionnuala Flanagan, we love her. We love her. So yeah. Any other thoughts on this one? I think the only other note I see from here is like courtroom Star Trek dramas are
the courtroom Star Trek episode trope is becoming not my favorite.
Like, oh great, another trial. Okay, here we go. Fair enough. Fair enough.
They would be the type that would start and I go, yeah, exactly. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
let me get up and stretch a little bit and, you know, get ready for this.
Now's a good time for me to do my dishes while this is on. Yeah.
Right. Fair. Except I actually have to pay attention. I can't skip through them anymore.
Right.
Yet.
Right. Yeah. Good times. Yeah. Let me see. Yes, and Mikhail, we'll talk about that when we get to that episode for sure. And Bad Panda, I like the judge too. She showed up in a few Star Trek as well. But yeah.
She's the lady from Mrs. Doubtfire, that's all I got.
That's my reference point. Yeah, exactly. Oh, thank you, Flying Lava Bomb. Whoop whoop. Okay, so the next episode is The Passenger. Now, this one is where Kira and Bashir respond to a distress call and find Tai Kajata and her prisoner, Vantika. Kajata tells them they started a fire in order to escape. Vantika dies, and Kajata's like, he's not dead. And he takes over Bashir's body. And, this is, even when I'm watching, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty terrible. And we'll talk about Bashir in this episode uniquely, but just to note that this is frequently rated one of the worst Deep Space Nine episodes and one of those that you can just skip over. But we don't do that.
We can't.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Exactly. So, yeah. What do you think?
I mean, I can understand it being rated one of the worst episodes. It was kind of a snooze fest a little bit. The thing, like, the fact that Kajia was right all along about, I'm getting his names, Ventika, I mean, that was sort of a cool reveal. Like, she was stuck to her guns, and she was like, we need to cover all the bases. Did you do this and this and this and this? But the crew, like, you can't really fault them for being like, dude, chill out.
Yeah.
He's dead. Yeah. Like, so that was kind of like, well, it's kind of, yeah, he's dead. But she was clearly right. But the final payoff of that was, I don't know, not, just kind of muddled.
Yeah.
I don't know. And yeah, Body Snatchers stuff is, I think it's hard to do really well.
Yes.
And it's a clear Star Trek thing. Like it definitely fits into the universe. There's been tons of these types of episodes, and this, I think some are better than others, and this was not one of the better ones.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, they have that classic, you know, it's the invasion of the Body Snatchers trope plus the whodunit type thing, and revealing that he's actually in Bashir is interesting. And it's like, I get the story. I just think, and we've talked about this with some TNG episodes as well, where it's like, on paper it seems like a good plot, and then it's just executed, and it doesn't have the high stakes pacing that you would want from this kind of plot. And
exactly. And I guess I might have missed this, but how long was he in Bashir? Was he in there for most of the episode?
No. I think he was jumping around.
That's what it seemed like, yeah.
And then settled in Bashir. Yeah.
Who ultimately went, like, took the shuttle and
right.
stuff.
Right. And this was...
Yeah.
What show was that? Never mind. I can't remember. It's all muddled now. But yeah, I think the interest... So I'm still curious, though, because you said right off the bat that you were kind of like, oh, like, Bashir, season 1, he's problematic, but he's a little bit adorable. And, in the sense that, like, him just openly harassing Jadzia is still kind of like, well, look, Jadzia can obviously handle it. But I think this opening where Kira and Bashir are in the ship and they're coming back and he's like, I surprise myself sometimes. And Kira's just like having none of it. She's like,
right.
Yeah, all right, bro. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on Bashir after this episode.
Well, I know you've seen my notes on the doc. So it's so funny to hear you say that he's so cringy to you right now and he gets better. Like, his character improves, and everyone in the chat from especially last week, I was like, oh god, I just made a really bad impression of myself.
No, not at all. Don't worry about that.
But
yeah,
I figured it out. Like, to me, he's got the same kind of like goofiness and harmlessness as like Schmidt from New Girl, or like Joey from Friends, or like Hook from Once Upon a Time. And to be clear, Schmidt and Joey I can't stand them. I think they're disgusting and awful and bad, but they've got a lovableness, particularly Schmidt, I think. Hook I absolutely love from Once Upon a Time, but he has the same kind of like suaveness but they don't push it so far that it's like a person that's gonna follow you into a dark alley or something,
right?
And Bashir is just so like bouncy, like as a person. Like, he's just like bumbling his way through and thinks he's good at it, but he's also not, like, and because of that, any woman could just like,
yeah,
if she's not going to have any of it, she's not going to have any of it. And like, he's not going to force it.
Right.
It seems like just the way his character is, I don't find him threatening.
Right. I think that's a really interesting point. And that's something I hadn't necessarily thought about before, where it's like, yeah, he's gross and annoying and it's like someone you kind of have to deal with, but you're not. I think the dark alley thing is, it's like, I don't feel like he's going to follow me down a dark alley. That is a difference. That is absolutely a difference.
Yeah. Whereas, to be honest, like Schmidt or Joey, like, I might think they'd follow me down a dark alley, to be honest. Like, some of the way they act, Hook. Never Hook, though.
I can't. Well, we're not going to talk about Once Upon a Time, but I can't with Hook because he's not Jason Isaacs. So
okay.
That's just
fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, and I'm really curious because Bashir ends up being, one of my favorite characters in Deep Space Nine, and I just struggle with him so much in this first season that I love the fact that you kind of like him, and so I'm really excited to see how you perceive his character development as we go.
Yeah, me too. And actually, I can see, if I were to go back and do a Deep Space, like, I'll probably go, oh God, Bashir, like, after I know him at the end. Yeah. But right now, like, I'm just being introduced for the very first time, like, so I don't have any frame of reference to who he becomes. And as it stands now, I'm like, eh.
And I think too with Bashir, as some people noted in the chat, I think Daib noted, because he's young and he's a little arrogant because it's his first major posting, and I think that wherein some of the other characters, and we touched a little bit on Cisco, where they're finding their feet because it's a new show and the writers are trying to find the character and the actors are trying to find the character. In some sense, Bashir's character growth supersedes, because it's like it's inherent to the character that they've written that he can be awkward and weird on the first season because he's young and he's and so he does have that opportunity to naturally grow.
Exactly.
As the viewer in canon, it makes sense. So that's cool. It's interesting. Very interesting. All right. All right. Move along home. All right, are we ready for this? I will
Let's
sing
go.
it. I will sing it. All right, this is the aliens who show up on Deep Space Nine. The Wadi come and essentially are just frequenting Quarks and are like, "You want a new game? We got a new game for you." And of course, Quark is never going to turn this down. And yeah, Alan Moraine, count to four.
Count to 4.
Alan Moraine, then 3 more. Alan Moraine, come with me. Or if you want to see Alan Moraine, come with me. It's so deep in my brain. It's
just there. It's never going away.
Yeah, it's never going away. So yeah, for me, and I think there's, Muhammad's like, this is my least favorite episode. It's a trip. I kind of love this episode.
Oh my God, there's a lot of opinions.
I'm agreeing a little bit with I kind of love it. Like, this episode starts and I'm like, ooh, chaos. Like, this is just a hot mess, weird episode. And it's fun. And I think the reason I enjoy it so much is it's kind of fun to see Quark sweat.
Yes.
In his own element. And so for me, that's why I like it. But yeah, people are very opinionated on this episode, and I love that.
Yeah, I thought this was so much fun, to be honest. Like, when it started, I was like, okay, another alien and games and Quarks, and then like when Cisco wakes up in the triangle thing, I was like, ooh. This is gonna be fun. So I just kind of like jumped on board. It was like the whole Jumanji thing. I was like, this is kind of cool. Awesome. I can see how people would be like, oh my God, let's skip, if they've seen it before. But it was just sort of like that sort of creepy stuck in a game thing. And I kind of loved who was there, and and Quark, sweating like about having to kill somebody or something. Yeah. And I thought it was actually kind of sweet to see him, not necessarily, I don't know if he cared about the characters or was caring about himself, like I couldn't quite tell, but
right.
it was still kind of like he didn't want to make that choice. And I thought that was a defining moment to me of his character, just from knowing him from like 10 episodes so far or something.
Right. Because the way that they've set him up, he could very easily have been like, cavalier, all right, awesome, weird, let's see if they live or not. And so to see that softness is really sweet. P. Stemish noted that they looked like they stepped right out of an episode of Space 1999 with their spandex, weird hair, and face paint. And I will note as well that at the same instant you said Jumanji, President Poppy said Jumanji vibes. So well done there. That was
high five.
Fabulous. Yeah. And a lot of people are like, this is my favorite bad episode. And I think that's exactly where I fall in it. It's like, I will say it's a weird bad episode, but it's like a good bad episode. And
exactly.
Bahano mentioned Prophet and Lace. We haven't got to that yet, but that is a bad episode. There are bad episodes of Star Trek, and then there are good bad episodes. There are ones that are fun to watch and other ones that you skip, or in our case, I rewatch through my fingers, and Samantha sits in horror and texts me GIFs as we go. So.
Exactly. Yeah, this was definitely a good bad episode. I will say though, Kira in this episode, like our last episode last Sunday, you were asking what I thought about Kira, and I was kind of like, oh, I really like her. She's passionate and she's, just out big, as a character. In this episode, I could see why some people were saying like she wasn't their favorite, because she has like 2 settings. She has off and and in this one she definitely was like, just there was no middle ground. It was just like anger that we got to get out of this, what's going on. And that was kind of annoying. I was like, simmer down, you're gonna be fine.
And I think that I do think, I mean, there's one episode in particular, I think even from the first season, where you'll start to find that middle base with Kira, but right now, like, you're absolutely right. It's just there's 0 and there's 100 with her, but I will guarantee, like, even though she isn't my personal favorite, I guarantee she's gonna get more depth. So
it's not like she dropped from my favorite or anything. It's just like this time I definitely noticed, like, she's kind of, at least to me right now, she's got two notes. And
like President Poppy said, I'll watch it when I'm sad because it's impossible to be sad when you watch Sisko and Kira do space hopscotch. 100%.
That was so nice. So awesome.
And
I love that he's the only one that sings too. Sisko's just like actually sings, and the other one's just like, say it. Like, I will not sing.
I love, and I've had so many moments at conventions where someone starts doing that, and there's like this mutual, like, half the people join in and half the people are like, F you, man, because this is now stuck in my head for the rest of the day. So, like,
oh my God.
Regardless of where you fall on your opinion of this episode, it sticks with you. I love. And I think, too, if I remember correctly, there was the, in the Deep Space Nine documentary, people can mention this or not, but I think, was it in the credits that they actually mentioned this, where I think they start laughing and talking about the Al Moraine song? So, yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny. Yeah, Stemish, I wish Worf had to play Space Hops.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, if only we could see Worf do this, that would just be...
And then Dr. Aina mentioned a good point, being so angry on Sisko's behalf after all of that, because, and I think for everyone involved, you felt that with Quark too, where they show up and Quark's like, oh good, I won, and they're like, no, you didn't, you lost, but it's just a game, we weren't gonna kill them. And then so good times. But I love it. For me, actually, this reminds me a lot, although I think I prefer this episode as opposed to the other one, but this reminds me of the Voyager clown episode with Michael McKean.
Oh, God, I forgot all about that episode.
Sorry. The fear episode. Yeah, the clown episode. But it just reminds me of that. And maybe it's just because of the face paint, but it's interesting. So I love it. Oh, yeah. Poppy. Yeah, President Poppy. I think you're right, where they were like, I think we've all forgot the best episode. And they were like, Al Moraine, count to 4. So yeah, I love it. Good times. Any other notes on this one?
No.
Okay. All right, so we have the Nagus. The Grand Nagus. All right.
Oh.
Retiring Grand Nagus Zek announces Quark as his successor over his own son. That is the entire premise of this episode. And also there's the B plot I love that we'll talk about second, because I want to talk about the Grand Nagus stuff, but that Sisko wants Jake to spend less time with Nog, and Nog gets pulled out of the school. Yeah, we're going to talk about that last. So so you're learning about the Ferengi.
I am. And it was funny. This episode could have pushed me over the edge, but it didn't. I still love Ferengi, and I can't believe those words just came out of my mouth, because I've hated them since I first saw them in Voyager. And you like, we saw that episode and you were like, just hang on, you will love the Ferengi, but you won't love them until Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And I get that. I mean, that's exactly right.
Because I love the Ferengi, and not everyone does. I think it's just knowing myself and knowing your personality and the fact that we're friends and all of this, I was like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like the Ferengi. So
I did. So it was fun, and like we had Wallace Shawn, and he's just so fun.
He's a perfect Ferengi.
He is. I mean, he's the same size as a Ferengi.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that. So, it was fun to see a lot of Ferengis in one room, and it really reminded me of what some things that I hadn't liked about them. You know, they're greedy. It's the profits. It's they swindle people. They're just to make the money and money and all and their code thing that I forgot about.
The rules of acquisition.
Not this thing. So that was brought up again, and I was like, oh right, this is like stuff that I saw on Voyager, and so the Ferengis, when you have a lot of them together, it's all about that. But I still came away like knowing more about them individually, or seeing them more as individuals. And yeah, it was fun to see a Ferengi-centric episode that didn't make me go, ugh.
I think actually you hit on a really good point in the sense that the Ferengi as a culture are very one note. That you have the profits, the rules of acquisition, all of this obsession. It's a very one-dimensional species, but they managed to maintain that while also having an incredibly diverse group of Ferengis that we get to meet. That they all behave and act like super uniquely and are very clear, distinct characters. And I love that. I think that's what I like a lot.
Yeah. It was so funny, like at the end, so it was all like a test for his son, who was like, but I was getting rid of the competition, I would take over the bar, and he was like, no, you would let him run the bar, and you would be behind him. I was like, I guess I was supposed to know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all manipulation and just, but like, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, if you were a true Ferengi, this is how you would have done it.
Right,
type
but
thing.
then it seems like on another episode, it would have been the opposite. Like if you were a true Ferengi, you would have pushed him out the airlock and taken over the bar. It's like just how they feel on the day.
Right. Whatever seems like it's going to be the biggest profit return.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Return on investment. I love that. And I love Quark's personality and how he behaves now that he's like Grand Nagus.
Yeah.
And he's walking around with a staff and just bonking. It's so great. And you got to meet a little bit more of Rom, his brother.
Yeah.
I really like Rom. I think Rom is a fantastic character. He took me a while to understand, but I think I personally really like him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know him more. I don't have any strong opinions yet, but this episode, again, like I've just remembered the end. So Quark is like, you were going to push me out the airlock. And he was like, and he's like, that's amazing. I didn't think you had it in you. I was just like, oh my God.
It's so great. So great. Yeah, I think I personally love Rom. I think it's a slow getting to know his character. Yeah. And then let's talk about Nog and Jake for a second.
So amazing. I mean, that was just such a cool reveal, because you're with Cisco almost in this thing, and he's walking through the hangar or wherever they are.
Promenade,
and or no, at the very end.
Oh,
they're in the
cargo bay.
Shuttle bay, cargo bay, and they're talking, and it's like you can't really hear what they're saying, and you're like, oh my God, they're like dealing drugs or something, you know? And he's teaching him to read. It's just
because it was one of those things where the Ferengis pulled Nog out of the school because they felt like he needed to have a good Ferengi influence, and this Human school was not gonna give it to him, and and Cisco is like, awesome, because I'm sick of my son hanging out with this troublemaking Ferengi, and then this reveal that Jake is teaching him how to read.
Like so innocent and sweet, and Noglin tries to, Jake has to cover for him, not having his homework because the Vulcans took it. The Vulcans ate my homework.
I mean, Nog, and the funny thing is that they are, it is just so genuine. And this is what I was commenting when we got to that episode where they were hanging out together, like after Cisco had seen them, and then they're hanging out in the promenade together, ogling some woman in a skin-tight suit that walks by. I'm like, they portray young teenage or preteen boys so well. They just nail it. It's so cute. It's so funny. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great friendship. So I love it.
So good. And then Ahab, you mentioned it's like they took what they learned with Wesley and decided to be realistic about it. I mean, I think that's fair. Yeah. We kind of mentioned that some of that has to do with the fact that they have friends.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, Wesley was kind of on his own. There wasn't anyone else his age. There were younger kids, but no one else at his age. And I think so he had to sort of act like an adult, which wasn't all that realistic until he came back from school. That was more, he fit in more, but he was older and, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
And these Jake and Nog are the same age, roughly, and in the same similar situation that there's not many other people of their age around.
Yeah.
And they just really have a fun bond.
Yeah. And I just, and Dr. Eno mentioned just sitting, you know, wishing you could join them at their spot.
I know.
My heart just grew 2 sizes. It's Jake and Nog at their spot. I'm gonna cry a lot in this rewatch. Let's just establish that right now. Yeah, and there were, and but I think like that's something we missed out on Alexander. That's something we missed out on with Wesley. Like, and even, you know, I think the reason that Naomi Wildman worked well on Voyager was because she had Neelix, who was a kid at heart, and then she also had Seven, who, like, you know, let's not forget that Seven was essentially her last human memories was being that age. You know, she was abducted by the Borg when she was Naomi's age, and so their dynamic worked really well. Where she did have friends, they just were reasonable adult friendships. And so that's why I think these Jake and Nog work really well. Oh yeah, and Icheb.
Oh.
Oh yeah. Forgot about him. Anyway.
Moving
on. Jake and Nog are just will always warm my heart so much. Okay, so with that one, the last episode we did this week is Vortex. So this is the one where we get a visitor from the Gamma Quadrant that Odo arrests for murder, and they have to extradite, and then he claims that he's met a changeling before. So essentially they have this business transaction that Quark is negotiating with these Miradorn twins, and then Croden, like, attempts to steal it, one of them gets killed, and then, he's this whole it's a murder mystery on the promenade.
Right.
Thing. So, I mean, this isn't a great one to end on, but it's okay.
It's okay. I think for me the biggest takeaway for this episode was the fact that Odo really thinks that he's the only one of his kind.
Yeah.
And I hadn't fully appreciated that there weren't other shapeshifters that he would know about or that other people would know about, because he clearly was very interested in that when the Croden, is that his name?
Croden, yeah.
Croden, the prisoner, mentions it. So I think that was the biggest takeaway. There wasn't a whole lot else to this episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, like, you didn't realize that, like, Odo's past. Like, so This was a little bit more of getting into his character growth and saying, like, okay, so he doesn't know who his species is. He's kind of desperate to learn who they are. And almost, I mean, up until now, we've seen him be lawful good to a fault, you know, and this is the first time where he kind of slips from that because he's desperate to learn his species. Yeah. So that was, I mean, clearly those stakes were high enough for him to let Croden go. So yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
And I hope we get a lot more of him discovering who he is.
Yeah. We will.
Good.
It's interesting too. I had actually forgot this part of the plot, but that it wasn't even just Odo's character growth that we were getting this from. And this is why I think this episode, even though it might be forgettable, is not a bad episode, because they have many layers to Croden's character, such that we discover that he's trying to save his daughter, you know, and that he's not just this psychopathic serial killer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Or creepy McCreeper from Creeper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an accurate description of how he appears through most of the episode.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I love the ending that the Vulcan ship just sort of, they escaped to Vulcan.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was cool.
It was cool. Yeah, this Vulcan science vessel wandering around the Gamma Quadrant is kind of, interesting. Yeah. I do think that Croden took acting classes from the Michael Keaton School of Character Development.
Here,
Because he is channeling Michael Keaton in the 80s and 90s vibe hard.
Yes. I think that's an accurate portrayal, and I will not unsee that now.
Thanks. And I mentioned this as well, and I think because we'd kind of mentioned last week that there was, in the chat, I had commented that, like, Odo's makeup looked a little bit, yeah, Jedi can take credit for the Michael Keaton comparison that I could not unsee as well, so,
well done, Aaron.
Yeah. But the, what was I gonna say? Oh, Odo's makeup in the first few episodes, he looked more human. He looked like kind of an old guy that, had sort of these features. And then I think in the last couple episodes, but particularly this one, it's heavy makeup. It's very much just all smoothed out features, like kind of raised up. And so, I see that it's kind of like you can see them finding that middle ground for where Odo can clearly be alien, but at the same time be expressive and still have some of the humanity. And it's very subtle. I think, like, I didn't notice that on my first watch, but, recognizing that later on was, it's interesting.
Yeah. Cool.
But, yeah. Anywho, any other thoughts on this one? This is a fairly... Okay.
Yeah, not really. I mean, to get to know Odo more was nice. So
yeah.
But there wasn't anything else super interesting about this episode.
One thing I'd like to kind of comment on, and I've got to give Mary Chifo credit because her and I were talking about this the other day, and then I thought about it this morning and figured it was too late to invite her to come on here, so we can have her on and have a more in-depth discussion about this. But we were talking about the beginning of Deep Space Nine and how we're presented with an incredibly diverse crowd. I mean, almost every shot, we either have, a woman or a black man or, there's a lot of diversity in Deep Space Nine. And yet, the character developments that we're getting are still focusing on primarily Odo and Quark, and they're great characters, they're great actors, but the actors are white men. And it's just it was an interesting dynamic that, like, she had pointed out, so you can give credit or blame to Mary for that one, but I'm picking up on that too, that, like, and it's not saying that it's like wholesale across the board, but I do find that the one-off character development, like interesting side conversations that we're getting are just written for Odo and Quark, and not so, we're not seeing casual conversations between Kira and Jadzia, for example, or we're not seeing Sisko and Bashir have just casual conversations, but we see a lot of just casual interactions with Odo and Quark, and it's just interesting. Now they are, without saying, I mean, brilliant. Like, Quark and Odo are my favorite, aside from Garrick. They're some of my favorite characters, and their interactions are some of my favorite interactions, but it's just an interesting insight.
It's an interesting comment, particularly how you began. Deep Space Nine is already a really diverse cast of characters, a cast of alien species. You have Sisko and O'Brien, who are human, Jadzia, who's Trill, Kira, who's Bajoran, I guess Bashir is human, but you have all of these other types of people who are pushed together, like you say, kind of in every scene. But the in-depth character development that we've seen so far is focused on definitely not, like you said, Odo and Quark. And that is an interesting point that we're getting that deep focus starting there. And I'm hopeful that we'll get more diving into the other people, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There's more diversity in the types of characters, but we're getting background on just those two right now.
Yeah. It's interesting. And then Trowerder mentioned another favorite character of mine, Morn. I'm not sure if they've even said the name Morn, but you know the guy who's at the bar all the time? He's the big gray guy who never says, so that's Morn. We love Morn.
Okay.
He's fabulous in the sense that he never says anything, but apparently has like this crazy backstory, and they always talk about how, it's like, oh yeah, I was like deep in conversation with Morn the other day. And yeah, literally, like, I hate to say this, but it was, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. Like, I was in the bathroom and it literally occurred to me where I was like, oh my God, it's Norm. It's Morn and Norm. And I looked it up, and that's exactly where they got the name from. That is literally Norm on Deep Space Nine is Morn. And
that is amazing.
We love it. Yeah, President Poppy, I've seen some amazing cosplay. I took a great... Morn sat at my table when I think Jedi and I were having drinks at Quark's bar at STLV last year. Morn in a Morn cosplay came and just sat at our table, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of fangirled a little bit about it. Because he was so great. He just didn't even sit down. He just didn't say anything. He just kind of gestured, and then he was fully in character. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I love it. Boy, a cosplay where you don't have to say anything, you can just walk around and people still love it.
Yeah.
I might look into that.
Yeah, exactly. No, Peace Time. It was like one of those things where I threaded it together, and I was like, and then I looked it up to confirm it. I never looked it up or anything, but it was just so funny. Yeah, and we find, Morn's got game. It's just, he's such a great, he's just that, I mean, just to pull the Cheers connection even more, but that he's got the Vera or the Maris or those characters that we never saw. We see him, but he never speaks, and yet he's like this whole legend. So we love
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see some great ones. So with that, we are pretty much up at the end. Next week we are going to be talking about Battle Lines, The Storyteller, Progress, If Wishes Were Horses, The Forsaken, and Dramatis Persona. So the next 6 episodes. They're okay.
Okay. Thanks for tempering my expectations. Here we go.
There's none unless I'm not picking it up from the names, I'm just like, there's none that I'm like, this is amazing. So... Anyway, any final thoughts, Samantha?
Nope. Really liking Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Good. I'm so glad. Yes, and thank you all for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it, joining us for our Sunday morning Star Trek brunch. And so, like I said, we will be back to talk about the next 6 Deep Space Nine episodes next Sunday. I've got my episode club on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. I didn't actually look at what won the poll this time, so we'll see. And then I'm continuing with Astronomy 101 on Fridays, and you can find all of the past broadcasts at the YouTube link down below. So, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Live long and prosper.
See you soon.
Until next time. Bye.